Okay, I was muted. Hello.
Hi, John. How are you?
Good. And you?
Good. Happy New Year.
Happy New Year to you. I will have everybody introduce themselves once we get underway.
Okay. Jen Kaufman's here. Let me admit her in.
Okay.
She's from our Planning and Development Department. Suzanne's here. Let me let her in. Hi, Jen.
Oh,
Hello.
as far as I know, everybody got on the board got this, so I hope we have everybody here. Okay. Hi, Suzanne. Yep, okay. Okay.
Hi, Terry. Happy New Year. Nice sweatshirt. Not many people know where that is.
I do. I was there. I used to go there when I was little. We used to sail there. It's beautiful.
My father was sailing and ran aground there. That's the only reason where I know where it is. And that is Kelsey. Here he is.
Oh,
Mrs. Lang-Rodine, I haven't seen you in a long time.
okay. I see that Suzanne and Jamie are muted.
There we
Okay.
go.
Hi, Jamie.
Hi, John.
Suzanne, you're muted? Can't hear you.
How's that?
Yep, you're on.
Okay.
Go.
Good.
Jennifer, how are the girls?
They're good. They're very good. They're all grown up. Rebecca's in New York and Emily's in Philadelphia. So both
Oh.
are out of college and happens fast.
Oh, it does. It does.
How are you
Our-
doing?
Great. Our first grandchild is due in 3 weeks. So
Oh, how
Wow.
exciting.
yeah, a
Congratulations.
little girl, a little
Aw.
girl. We can't wait.
You're going to have a blast.
Ugh, I think so.
Is this your first, Jamie?
It is.
Yes, that's
Yeah.
exciting.
Yeah, we're so thrilled.
Will they be living close by?
Hello,
They're in
Jen.
Misfit, so not bad.
Oh, that's nice.
I didn't hear what you said, though.
I think she said Mystic.
Oh,
I lost everybody. Can I?
uh-oh.
Jim, you are muted.
Me?
No longer.
Now you're on. Hello.
Yeah.
Well, we have everybody here from the board except for
It's
Saul.
very quiet. Do we still have sound?
I can hear you, Jim.
Can you hear me?
I
Not
bet
as
it's-
well as Jamie.
And there's somebody here who's muted and I have them in the lower apart from Mansfield. Oh, Wynn's here. Yep. Now we are here, except for Saul. Okay. Wynn, you're muted.
All right, can you hear me?
Yep, you're on. Okay. I haven't heard once again from Saul. Nothing came back, so I assume he got all the notices. But again, the full board is here with except for Saul, so maybe we should start. I think we need to introduce ourselves so we know who our guests are and who's speaking to us today. I'm John DeWolf. I'm chair of the board, and let's go around with the board members first. Suzanne?
I'm Suzanne. I'm a fairly new member. I think probably one of the latest to have joined.
Jamie? Okay,
Dean, I'm an alternate.
okay, and then Jim?
Jim Rayner. I've been around for a while.
Yep, and Wynn Smith?
Hi, Win Smith. I've been on for years.
So that's the board members, and we have 4 others I see. So if you can go around, please.
Sure, let me start. I'm Holly Schaefer. I am the HR director for the town of Mansfield.
So next, I guess, Jennifer Kaufman. I'm senior planner. I work in planning and development for the town of Mansfield.
And I'm Terry Berthelot. I'm on the town council and I'm currently acting as chair of the Committee on Committees.
Oh, Saul's here too. Saul, you're muted. We can't hear you, Saul. Your mic's turned off.
Updating.
Okay, you're there. And so
Yep.
Saul's our other member. So with that in mind, I assume we have no public members just here. I'm starting with the agenda. Okay, then the next item of business will be approval of the minutes from the October 21st meeting. I don't know if anybody's looked at them. I've looked at them and they're okay. I need a motion and so on.
Move to approve the minutes.
Second,
I'll second it.
thank you. Any discussion? Does anybody see any need for changes or corrections? As I say, I went through.
No.
Okay, all in favor?
Aye.
I,
Any opposed? Any abstentions? Okay, so that's
Hey,
done.
John, can I just clarify something? As
Sure.
as an alternate to the board and we have a full board present, I'm not voting, is that correct?
That I believe is correct, but that's all.
Okay.
That's right. Okay,
Okay, I didn't, so I just wanted to clarify.
I'm doing it a little less formally, but the minutes are approved regardless, but thanks. Okay. The only item before us is this conflict of interest that's been brought to us, or potential conflict of interest regarding the affordable housing. And I don't know any more about the issue than we need to discuss it, or the town council would like us to discuss it. So maybe Terry, you would lead off, or is somebody else set to lead off on presenting us what the issue is?
I'm happy to start. Just for clarification, this is coming from the Committee on Committees, not the town council.
Okay.
And as you may or may not know, one of the things that's happened in town very recently is that we created what's something called, it's a trust fund for affordable housing. And this money will go into it from various sources. And then that money will be spent to further affordable housing in our town. So that's all terrific. And regarding the trust fund, there is going to be an affordable housing committee that will have other charges, but one of its most important charges will be making recommendations to the town council about what money how it should be funded, the trust fund should be funded. But additionally, what the trust fund should pay for to further affordable housing.
Okay.
So the question before you, and I will let Jen speak more to this, because really this is coming from staff as a concern, is that some of the folks who would like to serve on the Affordable Housing Committee have very, very dedicated people who've been working on affordable housing for years, also serve on other groups who could potentially, not-for-profits, that could potentially get money from the trust fund. So they themselves will know in no way will be personally enriched, but they're the organizations where they serve as board of directors, and in one case as the director of the organization, their organizations could potentially, they most likely will be beneficiaries from the trust fund. Okay, I'll turn it over to Jen.
I think where staff was coming from, we just wanted to make sure that there were no conflicts or perceived conflicts. So we had discussed this at a staff level, and we did get an opinion from the town attorney. I'm not sure if you have received that or reviewed it. So would it be appropriate for me to share my screen, and I could
That would
have
be
you.
great. Yes,
Okay.
please.
So let's see here. So many things open. This is the right one. So are you seeing this letter from Kevin Deneen?
Yep.
So I'll just let you read it, unless you want me to read it to you. Probably easier for you to read it.
So this is from an attorney.
Correct.
Is it the town attorney?
The
Yes,
town
okay.
attorney, we just wanted to make sure that there would be no issues as we established this committee, that because we knew that there were just a number of people from the Mansfield Housing Authority specifically, and the Mansfield Nonprofit Development Corporation, and they have an approved project that will likely, money for that project will likely money for that project will be directed from the trust fund, most likely. That is the only affordable housing project that we have in town. So we just didn't want the council or the committee to get into the position where there might be a perceived conflict of interest or a perceived conflict of interest. So we did refer this out to our town attorney, and he provided this letter. He does state that there's no direct prohibition on individuals who are currently affiliated with the Mansfield Housing Authority or its nonprofit development arm. But he does say that it may raise significant issues regarding a conflict. So it also may be helpful if I share the charge of the Affordable Housing Committee.
I haven't finished reading it. I don't know about other members.
I
Are you-
haven't. either.
It would have been nice to have
Time
had
to
this.
read it.
It
Sorry?
would have been nice if this had been distributed before the meeting, but could I go back and please see the letter?
You certainly can. Do I need to increase the size? It's hard. I can't see what I'm sharing on Zoom.
Print is a little small.
Well, you can enlarge it, I think, yourself. I can on my iPad.
Is that better?
That's
Yeah.
better.
Okay, let us read it, please. I'm only saying the first.
Yeah, I will go down to the last.
Okay, thank you.
Sorry.
Well, go back up a little bit.
Thank you.
Yeah, okay,
Thank you.
thank you.
No.
Mm.
Okay, I'm open to comments from the committee or questions.
Well, I'm kind of wondering, what are the reasons that the housing authority members want to be part of the AHC? What do they give as their reasons?
Do you want me to speak to that, or Terry, would you like to speak to that?
I think we both can speak to that. There are, they're the director of the housing authority and various members who are part of the Board of Commissioners have been fighting really hard for affordable housing in this town for a very long time. So they're very vested in seeing affordable housing come to fruition.
I think it's hard because they are the ones who, they know affordable housing, they're dedicated to affordable housing, but yet they're basically the only game in town right now in terms of being able to develop, or they have an approved project that needs funding. So when they're developing policies as to how this money from the trust fund would be spent, or they're advising the town council on who to direct that money to, I worry that they're, and I think Kevin Deneen states, it's not me, it's really from Kevin, that there could be that perceived conflict of interest. But yet, as Terry pointed out, these are members of a board. They're a nonprofit board. They're not receiving any financial benefit themselves. So other than maybe the director who is paid by the organization, but I can't. So it's a little bit of a tough situation. And also, I haven't reviewed the applications for who wants to apply for this committee, but I think it's a lot of people who serve on either the housing authority or this nonprofit arm, because they're the ones who are promoting and advocating for affordable housing. So it's a little bit of a challenge.
They have real expertise.
Yeah.
And Kevin is sort of imagining a time where there would be others who would be competing with them. I have to say that I only wish for that to happen. Affordable housing is not a money-making sort of, there's really no way to make money. Well, there probably is. There's always some crooked way to make money someplace, but generally speaking, it's not the best way to make money. The trust fund is a way of the towns sort of, because there's not a natural market for it. It's a way of having that market develop here.
How is the trust fund funded?
Great question. So the money will come from multiple sources, including other developers in town. There's this opportunity. There's a requirement with new construction that they provide a certain amount of housing that is affordable. They can avoid that by payment in lieu, and the payment in lieu will go into the trust fund. Other ways, we intend to put some of the money that we're getting from the federal government, our COVID money, into it. And then in many ways, the people on the Affordable Housing Committee will be coming up with other ideas of ways to fund it.
Thank you.
Who is the legal trustee of the trust fund?
who is the legal trustee?
Yeah,
In the sense of who's the beneficiary or who's in charge of it?
who's in charge of it?
I would say the town council ultimately. So the committee will only be making recommendations. Ultimately, it will be the town council that makes decisions about all of these things. These will all be recommendations.
So we have been approached, most, just as a, we have been approached by other developers who would be developing affordable housing, other than the nonprofit arm. Whether or not that comes to fruition, I'm not sure. It's with affordable housing, generally, it's not just, you wouldn't build just a complex for affordable housing. It's going to be mixed use, just as the project on South Eagleville Road that has been approved is not mixed use, mixed income, I'm sorry. So that is not all affordable. It's that right now it will be dependent upon their funding mechanism as to how much affordability they can offer, but I think it's going to be half affordable. Generally, the mix is about between 30 and 15% affordable. So we're not built, the trust fund most likely won't be funding, they'll be funding other projects. It could be land acquisition, it could be renovations, it could be the purchase of deed restrictions on homes or existing condos or apartment complexes to make them so that they are affordable. So there'll be other ways to that this trust fund will need to be, that could be spent. It's up to the Affordable Housing Committee and the Town Council.
If the town council ultimately decides that it doesn't really pass the smell test, then what? Who have you got to man the committee?
Suzanne, I want to make sure I'm understanding your question. So if the committee were to make a recommendation and it didn't pass the smell test, in what sense?
If they might say technically that, yes, it's within the bounds of ethical procedure, but considering the possible conflicts that could come up in the future, that's where it wouldn't necessarily pass the smell test up front. So if that's the case, and members from the Housing Authority are not going to be allowed to serve on the Affordable Housing Committee, then where will you find people to man the committee? Are you looking for specific qualifications, or is this open to residents in Mansfield the way so many other committees are?
So there are a list of sort of attributes that would be nice for people to have on the committee. Most of which the current applicant pool doesn't meet, other than some expertise in affordable housing. But there's not a requirement that folks have these attributes.
I'm having trouble understanding some of the discussion, but it seems to me that the choice of someone recusing themselves would be extremely difficult in terms of getting information that might help their organization, as well as voting on distribution of funds.
I think it could potentially create problems for voting, because I think we've got 4 applicants, so it could possibly be the case that they would all need to recuse themselves, and then only 3 people would be voting, which I think is okay as long as you have a quorum. That you could have a limited amount of people vote. They wouldn't be prohibited from expressing what they think should happen. But from Kevin would like to see happen is that they recuse themselves from votes where money would potentially, their organizations would be the beneficiaries.
I have a question. There are 2 committees currently in existence, and those are the 2 committees that people who are on those committees might want to be on this, or is it more than 2 committees?
I'm sorry, what committees are you speaking of?
Okay, you're concerned about somebody on a committee who is going to the trust, asking for money from the trust fund, whether they should be on that committee that represents a trust fund or not.
Yes, sir, I understand.
And what
So
are the 2
these other organizations are not town committees. So these other organizations are not for profits. The Housing Authority and there's an organization called the Nonprofit Housing Development Corporation. Neither of them are town committees. The committee that we are currently charged with populating is new, and it's a town committee, and it is the Mansfield Affordable Housing Committee.
Okay, but if somebody on one of these committees ends up on the trust committee.
So the trust, there is
they're
no
on one of
trust,
those I'm
there's
not,
no trust, there is no trust committee.
well, the committee you're forming is going to determine how the trust funds are or recommend how the funds are allocated.
Right.
Okay, if committee is, another committee or group is coming to that for money from the trust fund, it doesn't seem to me that their members should be on the trust fund committee.
That's the ethical
That's the
dilemma.
issue. Yeah. I went through the ethics provisions, and I can't see anything, and I'm not a lawyer, but I can't see anything that directly affects this. But I think there is an ethical aspect. I don't think you should be on a committee asking for funds and then also be on the committee that makes the recommendation on how the funds are spent. But that's my personal decision from just thinking through this. I don't know how the board feels.
I would agree with you, John. I think the handful of people that are involved in affordable housing are very knowledgeable, they were very well intentioned, and I would assume quite honest. But to me, it sets up this perceived conflict problem, which down the road, it could be in 2 years or 10 years, it seems inevitable that it's going to come up as a real conflict. And then the question is, well, why did we as a committee okay it? I have a real problem with it, frankly.
I'm wondering why the members of the Mansfield Housing Authority could not serve as consultants when needed for this new committee, rather than actually be on the committee.
I think these folks are super dedicated, and that's in fact what will happen. If it is your decision that if there is a conflict here, the meetings will be public, and there'll be opportunity for them to speak to the committee.
There's going to be a lot of work that has to be done in terms of affordable housing. Implementing this plan, and once we do get affordable units, we're going to have to monitor them. We're going to have to make sure that people are meeting the income requirements so that they are in fact affordable units. And I sort of see that that's a role, an expertise that the housing authority has, that perhaps, you know, the town could contract with them to do some of that work. So their expertise is really invaluable in this, and it's a shame that there is this conflict, but and after reading Kevin's letter, I think it makes sense, but it is ultimately a policy decision of the town council, and I guess you're here to advise them.
It seems to
ahead.
me that Kevin, the lawyer is basically saying, and somebody, I think John might have said this as well, or maybe Jim, this is going to come up. And who knows when it's going to come up, and we're going to be right back here again, deciding, is this ethical or not, that these decisions are being made. So it seems to me that while there's no set policy in our manual that says no, it's ethically wrong. And I hear what you're saying, Jen. I hope, and also Suzanne, I hope we can tap their expertise somehow.
Can I read you a part from the ethics ordinance? And this is then under purpose. The trust of the public is essential for government to function effectively. Public policy developed by government officials and public employees affects every citizen of the municipality, and it must be based on honest and fair deliberations and decisions. And then I'm jumping through this. This process must be free from undue influence so that the confidence of the public is not eroded. I think you're opening yourselves up to problems if people who are recommending how the money is being spent are also on another group that is looking for that money. That's my personal opinion.
Maybe we should just recommend that the two groups should be separate, that if you're on the affordable housing group, you should not be on this trust committee. I mean, that would be a simple solution to it. If somebody is vitally interested or very well informed, they could choose which one they'd want to be on, but they probably shouldn't be on both.
But they would have an opportunity to go before the committee that makes the recommendation to the town council and provide information and recommendations.
Sure.
And pass it through, but
I've all along, I've been assuming that positions within the Mansfield Housing Authority are paid positions, and that the Affordable Housing Committee would be voluntary. Do I have that right?
The Housing Authority has paid staff, but they have a board just as any other nonprofit would have a board. And the Development Corporation, I think is a board, and then they hire consultants, like they've hired an engineer and they have a architect, and just like any developer would. So
will some people who are paid be on this committee that makes recommendations to the council?
So nobody will get paid on the Affordable Housing Committee.
I agree, but what about people who are
there-
being paid?
So the Mansfield Housing Authority is a not-for-profit. It's not a town entity. It's even though it has Mansfield in its name, it's a distinct not-for-profit. And like most not-for-profits, it has a director who runs it, who is hired by the board and is paid. And there are other staff who she directs.
And
So
would you consider them for this board that makes the recommendations on how the money should be spent?
So the one of the people who have applied is the director of the Mansfield Housing Authority.
Who is paid
Mhm.
for their work?
Yep. Now, when not-for-profits get money comes in a
I
discrete, like you can't use money that's coming in to do one thing I mean, not-for-profits are, the rules are very, very strict. If you're getting money to develop something, you can't just move salary over to other people. So it's not like this particular person would be getting personally reimbursed through recommendations that came from the housing, from the Affordable Housing Committee.
But a paid member of that group could be on this committee, and if they're that group, and I'm not going to say which group, if that group gets in financial trouble, they will say, well, we need to find some other way to fund our group. And they might go through this committee, and that their director sits on this committee. That is not an ethical situation.
I remember always that, I mean, you all should make your own decision here. That's you are non-biased, and but remember also the town council is ultimately responsible. All they'll be doing is making recommendations. So if it appeared that the sole purpose of the trust fund was going to turn into keeping a particular not-for-profit afloat, that would not be consistent with affordable housing in our town. So it's not likely, I guess we talked about the smell test, that would ever get through the town council.
So is the committee on committee looking for our recommendation or via a motion or just a general recommendation?
I think you should make it an official response to the question asked.
Okay. And the question asked is still, okay, a little vague. Members of the board, do you see a motion coming from this discussion?
Yeah, I think there's a consensus. I mean, I sense that there's a consensus. And to me, the question is, should members of the Mansfield Housing Authority, is it ethical for members of the Mansfield Housing Authority to serve on the Affordable Housing Committee?
Could you repeat that, looking at the camera?
Oh, okay.
I-
What I'm saying is that I'm sensing that we're ready to make a decision.
Yes.
And the question would be, do members of the Mansfield Housing Authority, are they ethically, is it ethical for them to serve on the Affordable Housing Committee?
And is there also a second group?
I don't think you want to name specific groups. I think that because that will limit the scope of your recommendation. So I think it's potential beneficiaries that who you're speaking of. So we know these two groups are potential beneficiaries of the trust fund. But I think the language should list the particular not-for-profits.
I would say the words potential beneficiaries of the trust funds for affordable housing should be the phrase.
That's not really what we were asked from the very beginning. It was really pretty straightforward the way we were asked. And that was, is it ethical for someone on the Housing Authority to serve on the Affordable Housing Committee? That was the question that originally came to us weeks ago.
And we would say yes or no to that question.
That's what we were asked.
Yeah, I didn't pose that question. I would, if I had been involved in posing the question to you, I would have framed it a little less specifically. So to make it such that your decision is not just so that a year from now, if another not-for-profit was in town and was interested in doing the same thing, we would want your decision to already have answered the question, that it's the possibility of the not-for-profit benefiting from the trust fund.
Suzanne, would you be comfortable if we said potential beneficiaries such as?
Yeah, that's fine.
And
And I don't have any issues with what was just said. No,
Okay.
I'm making notes.
Yeah, I think the committee on, well, Terry, you can speak to this, but it is hard to find people to serve on committees. They're volunteers. So I think, and also this, so I do, but maybe I'm speaking to two issues. I do think it's good to broaden it, because that is the issue. It's if you're benefiting from this trust fund, should you be serving on the Affordable Housing Committee that is going to be making the decisions on how this money is being spent?
Isn't the idea to pull information together for this committee that reports to the town council from all the different groups and then decide and make a recommendation? And should person be in two levels? If a town council member was going to benefit from these funds, they would have to recuse themselves.
I would think so.
And so would anybody. I think you want, just off the cuff, I think you want a committee that doesn't contain people that would have a conflict of interest. And if your committee you're on is a beneficiary, then you probably shouldn't be on the committee that makes the recommendation of the town council. And that's what you're saying, Suzanne, or
Yeah,
you want to, yeah. Members of groups that are potential beneficiaries of the trust funds should not be on the committee making the recommendation to the town council. Does that sound reasonable?
it sounds correct to me.
Sounds good.
Terry, did you say that there is not a trust fund committee? I think we all agree that ethically we don't want to do this, but I think we need to word it correctly. And
Yes.
maybe Terry has the best handle on how to word it correctly.
Correct. It's the Affordable Housing Committee.
It's not a trust committee.
It's not a trust committee. It is the Affordable Housing Committee.
Okay.
Okay. I'm still messing up trust.
well, they are beneficiaries of the trust fund,
Right.
but they should not be appointed to the Affordable Housing Committee. So however we,
Yeah. I got to start over.
I just shared the, this is the charge of, this is the name of the committee, and then this is the charge. I apologize. If I had known about this, I would have made sure you got these, the charge and the letter from the attorney.
Is the Affordable Housing Committee going to be 7 people? Did I understand that correctly?
yeah,
That's correct.
Yeah,
That's what it says.
And can I guess that there aren't more than 8 people in town that are really versed in this and interested in it?
I think even when we remove the folks that we're speaking about, we'll still get 7. Affordable housing it's amazing on how many people care very deeply about it.
oh, that's good to hear.
Well, yeah, that is good. to
I
hear.
was concerned that there wouldn't be people willing and able and qualified to
Well,
potentially.
qualified, they're not going to be as qualified as the other group.
I get, yeah,
Yeah,
I
we're disqualifying the most qualified people.
I know.
But there are people who care, and because they care, hopefully they'll take the advice and listen to what these other folks have to say.
Good. That makes me feel better.
Yeah, and I think it's really good for those 7 other people to have a chance to contribute in a way that they're passionate about. That's,
Mhm.
that's what our community committees are all about.
It's true.
So where are we? I was trying to write.
Good. What do you have, John?
Okay. Based on our earlier discussion, it is the opinion of the Mansfield Ethics Board that members of groups that are potential beneficiaries of the trust fund should not be on the Affordable Housing Committee.
Could we say of the trust fund administered by the
Oh, that's good.
Affordable Housing Committee?
They're not actually administering it, though. They're only making recommendations.
Yeah,
So, so they're not, ultimately, they'll never be dispersing funds from it.
Who administers it, Terry?
That'll be the town who actually disperses the funds. It'll be
So
the
should-
town council that makes the decision, but it will be members of the town staff who make the disbursements.
So should we include the term, however you have that written, John, that the town would not? No, forget it. I can't think of how to say it.
But we want to call it the Mansfield Affordable Housing Committee, correct?
Right. And
So
then it's
put-
the Affordable Housing Trust. So if they're,
Oh,
so
Okay.
the committee is the Mansfield Affordable Housing Committee, and the
Mhm.
trust is the Mansfield Affordable Housing Trust. Trust fund, sorry.
do we
Is it-
want to put that of the Mansfield Affordable Trust? Is that what it is?
Affordable Housing Trust Fund.
Okay. I can reread it then. It is the opinion of the Mansfield Ethics Board that members of groups that are potential beneficiaries of the Mansfield Affordable Housing Trust Funds should not be on the Affordable Housing Committee.
Mansfield Affordable.
Yep, okay.
Would you want to say, instead of cannot, would have a conflict of interest serving on, do you want to use that language or no?
I think it's more specific if you don't use that language.
So Jennifer's right. The limit of your power is to say that there's an ethics violation. You're not empowered to actually prohibit. She's correct. The town council could just decide, could still overrule you even
Right.
now. So I don't think that's likely to happen, but your power is with making the ethical finding.
Mhm.
So that there would be an ethical, it is your opinion that there would be an ethical violation.
Right.
I think I understand. This is our opinion that these people should not be on the committee.
Would
But
have
it
a
is not
conflict
a
of interest
determination.
serving,
Pardon?
would have a conflict of interest if they were to serve.
Are we able to determine they have a conflict of interest?
Hmm.
Unless the issue becomes before us. I've looked at the ethics ordinance, and I'm not again a lawyer, but I'm not sure we can establish that at this point without having more specifics on a particular person.
Well, do we want to go back to the idea that it's an ethical violation? With that,
Or even just the appearance. I mean, just the language from your own charge, that there's the possible appearance of.
How does the committee feel?
I think that the term perceived conflicts is a good thing to include in our motion.
Okay,
Conflicts or perceived conflicts.
oh,
That sounds good, but John, when you read it before, I think you mentioned shall not serve on the Mansfield Housing Authority, but I thought we had decided to make that more general. That, anyone who might possibly be the recipients of the trust monies. It might not be just the housing authority, it might be someone else. I thought we discussed that, but I could be wrong.
That's why it says that are members of groups that are potential beneficiaries.
That's right. Okay.
Okay, but the question is, do we want to say absolutely that it is a conflict of interest, or is it just our opinion?
Well, it's certainly a perceived conflict of interest.
Yeah, I like that word.
For
Okay.
sure, it is that. Whether it is actually a conflict of interest may or may not be the case, but I don't think we want to okay perceived conflicts of interest. Because if the town is putting in money that we just got from the federal government, there are some taxpayers who would not want to have a perceived conflict of interest, I think.
Right.
I agree.
Well, I could say, it is the opinion of the Mansfield Ethics Board that members of groups that are potential beneficiaries of the Mansfield potential beneficiaries of the Mansfield Affordable Housing Funds would have a conflict of interest if they were on the
We could, yeah, that's pretty good.
Would you, I'm typing it. Would you like me to share my screen so you guys can see what's on there?
That would be great. I don't know how to do it with Zoom myself, or I would be doing that.
I'm just trying to, hold on.
My
All right.
Zoom skills are not that great.
All right. Hopefully there are no typos. I just did this really quick. So someone moves and someone seconds that it is the opinion of the Ethics Board that potential beneficiaries of the Mansfield Affordable Housing Trust, let me blow this up.
I think it's that members of groups that are potential beneficiaries,
That
members of groups that if they serve, that's good.
Yeah.
is the opinion of the Ethics Board that members of groups that are potential beneficiaries of the Mansfield Affordable Housing Trust would have a conflict or perceived conflict of interest if they served on the Mansfield Affordable Housing Committee. Does that make sense?
Mhm.
Yep.
Yep.
Good.
Terry, how does that sound
Again-
to you? Terry, how does that
Jen,
sound
should
to you?
it be that they interest if they were to serve?
Yeah,
Because we're looking to,
Sure.
Were
they-
to, s-
if they
yeah.
were to serve,
If they
or
were,
were appointed.
or
No, it's served.
were to serve is good.
Yeah.
sure, I'm open to any wordsmithing here. I'm just trying to be the typist.
Thank you
That's
for
great.
doing it.
Thank you. Yeah.
Would could be better than would?
Wait. Could.
No, could, I think would is better,
Yeah,
Okay,
because could leave some doubt.
okay.
And
Terry,
your
what do you-
official title is it's the Ethics Board?
I missed that. Yep, Mansfield Ethics Board, right. Thank you. Well,
Terry,
committee,
what do you think about the wording?
I think it looks great, and
Looks
I
good.
really appreciate you spending the time to get it right.
Thank you.
Does anybody see need for further wordsmithing? Then we need a
No.
motion and a second.
I'll move
So
it.
moved.
So when you've moved,
Yep.
and Jim, you,
I'll
I
I'll second
second.
it, John.
okay. Okay, it has been moved and seconded. Is there further discussion?
No.
No,
Okay. All in favor? Please say
Aye.
aye.
I,
Opposed? Okay,
So it passed you, did it pass unanimously? You,
Yes.
I missed that.
okay. There.
Okay,
Yeah.
yep.
Whoever does these minutes, I'll pass them along to you. I'll pass along to Holly or Kelsey.
Okay, Terry, that's what you needed? Terry?
Is she frozen? Oops.
I'd like to move that we adjourn.
Is there a second?
second.
Okay. All in favor of adjourning?
Aye.
Any opposed? Okay, then I declare as adjourned. I hope you're all staying healthy. I hope things are going okay in this weather for you. And I guess we're
Yep.
done. Okay,
Have a good
Thank-
evening.
Thanks. Jen, say hi to Doug.
okay. Okay, thank you, everybody.
Thank you.